Welcome to another Unmuted with Marsha. I am thrilled to have you all join us as always. And we're going to talk about one of those hot topics today. It is what is taking place on the southern border. And of course, the House has impeached Secretary Mayorkas over this issue. And now here in the Senate, Chuck Schumer is trying to delay and cover up and not hold a trial. Believe it or not, that would be a first in U.S. history. But we all know that Secretary Mayorkas lied to the American people, and he lied to Congress by repeatedly saying that the border is secure. We know it is not secure. Indeed, we have had 9.2 million illegal border crossings since Joe Biden became president of the United States. And I recently was in Eagle Pass, Texas. It was a return visit for me. When I was there over a year ago, they had thousands of illegal crossings every single week. And now, because they're securing their border, they have about 12 crossings a day. So we've got a great guest for you. I know that he's a familiar face. You see him on TV. Lieutenant Chris Olivarez. He is the spokesperson for the Texas DPS. And of course, they have taken the lead. They are spending billions of dollars to secure the Texas border. And, you know, Lieutenant Olivarez, I find it so interesting that Texas is working overtime. You've got buoys in the river. You've got containers on the embankment. You've got razor wire and fencing behind all of that. And Texas is being sued by the Biden administration. And I would like to have you talk for just a minute why it is so important that Texas is doing what they can do to secure that border when the federal government will not.
Well, Senator, first off, I want to thank you for inviting me on your show. Also, most importantly, thank you for your support. You visited the border numerous times. We have the opportunity to brief you on what we're doing in Texas, but also thank you for sending Tennessee Guard troops, soldiers, to support our Texas National Guard as well. It does provide value when we talk about border security. So I want to thank you for that, foremost. Of course, you got to see firsthand at Shelby Park in Eagle Pass, Texas, how we were able to secure one of the most, would be the epicenter of illegal border crossings in the last 2 years, where we were averaging anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 a day. And at one point in December, we were averaging 4,000 to 6,000 a day in just that one single area. Now we have decreased those numbers down to single digits. So really shows that when you actually have leadership, and what I mean by that is, Governor Abbott, our lieutenant governor, our legislators, everyone involved that has provided the leadership, the tools, the resources, the funding for our state troopers, for our National Guard soldiers to do their job efficiently, really shows as a testament of the work to show how you can secure an area. And, it's an uphill battle we've been facing for the last 3 years in Texas. We're not only having to combat criminal organizations, cartels, suspected terrorists, those that want to cause harm to not only our state, but the country, but also our own federal government that continues to challenge us from protecting our own state. I really think it's quite ironic that they try to stop us when we place barriers along the river, or when we try to enforce any laws that we have in the state of Texas to actually prevent illegal border crossings. They want to challenge us on that. But of course, you saw firsthand in Eagle Pass that we were able to maintain control, take over control. And because of that, it really shows now that we're seeing those numbers of illegal border crossings now shift towards the west, New Mexico, San Diego, California. Overall right now, Senator, in Texas alone, we account for 24% of illegal border crossings. That is a significant low number compared to where we were at 3 years ago. Right now, 76% of daily border crossings are now taking place in those western areas. As I mentioned, New Mexico, San Diego, and California. So it really shows when you have strong leadership and you have the will to actually enforce laws, that you can actually secure an area and take action. And that's what we've been doing in Texas.
Well, and I appreciate that. When I was there a couple of weeks ago, Lieutenant, what I did was sit down with some of the sheriffs in the area there across the border in those counties, and also some of the ranchers and farmers, and hearing about the effect of the illegal crossings on public safety is something that was not lost on me. These counties are spending a lot of money. When you look at public safety calls that come into them from people that have illegally crossed, that end up being lost, or maybe they've been hurt, or they show up at the hospital, or then law enforcement gets called out, and then no one has the ability to go respond to a local 911 call or to get EMS moving their direction. And they said it's costing them millions, plus it's costing them time. So talk to me a little bit about what the effect has been with these illegal border crossings on these local governments and on that local response time.
Well, I mean, it really does directly impact these smaller, police departments, sheriffs, that actually don't have the manpower to actually take on a situation like we've been dealing with for the last 3 years. And as you mentioned, the calls for service, emergency calls, when you're talking about an agency or a department that only has anywhere from 3 to 5 officers or deputies to respond to an area in a county, and now they're having to divert their resources to respond to illegal immigrants that are either crossing on someone's private property or someone that's in distress. Well, now there is that lack of responding to emergency calls, and these counties don't have those resources, especially the ones along the border. And that's where we come in as a state. We try to supplement that with some of our resources. But even then, as big of an agency that we are, we have more, majority of our resources dedicated to border operations. So it does make it very difficult. It does strain not only federal resources, which we know, but also local, county, and even state resources as well. So, and when that happens, the ones that do feel those impacts, not only the first responders, but also the landowners, the ranchers. You got to talk to several ranchers when you were there in Eagle Pass, Texas, with us, and you get to hear the stories of how this current crisis has changed their overall lifestyle. Where now they don't feel safe in their homes because they don't know who's coming across their property. They don't know who may break into their homes. And now majority of these ranchers, they're having to change their lifestyle just to even go throw the trash. They have to carry a weapon because they don't know who's going to be coming across their property. And that was one of our key focuses when Governor Abbott launched Operation Lone Star, was to focus on that criminal activity, to go after those criminals that do want to cause harm to public safety and national security, but also provide that support, much needed support, to our landowners, because they are vital to what we do. So, it is very, just disheartening to actually, when you hear some of these stories from these ranchers, that what they have to deal with, it really does impact everyone, not just first responders. And we see that firsthand, and you got to see that firsthand as well, and you got to witness it as firsthand as well. So I think it really sheds light on the situation.
It does shed light. And when you think about being a rancher and you come home and you've got two illegal aliens that are in your kitchen, and your daughter is in the room doing her school work and completely unaware that they have broken into the house, or they break in the middle of the night, or you can't leave keys in farm equipment, or they steal that, or they tear down fences. For ranchers, same thing for farmers, and farmers are trying to put up fencing to protect crops, whether it is any kind of row crop, and to protect those farms. That is their livelihood, and that's their private property. One of the things that I saw from Texas DPS and Operation Lone Star, and I was so impressed with this, is the work that you all have done with keeping track of your apprehensions. I think 40,000 criminal illegal aliens that you all have apprehended, 36,000 felony charges that you all have placed, 469 million doses of fentanyl. That is 469 million lethal doses of fentanyl. You have apprehended that and gotten that out of the system. But you look at these numbers and you think, wow, this seems almost impossible. What has been the most shocking thing to you as Texas DPS has carried out Operation Lone Star?
You mentioned some of those stats, and it really does show the work, the hard work that our troopers have been doing in the last 3 years, despite challenges that we face every day. Of course, we talk about the drugs. Just real quick, I want to touch on that. The fentanyl that we seize, this is fentanyl that's come across the border, has made it past checkpoints, has gotten by secondary checkpoints, and the way we're able to seize that amount of fentanyl is because our troopers are out there stopping cars, searching cars, and they're able to seize these drugs from making it further into the interior. So that really is significant work that's being done by these troopers, just based on their experience, their training to be able to detect some of this criminal activity. And that amount of fentanyl, that's only from one agency. That's not taking into account, obviously, what the federal agency sees and local and county, but really shows that fentanyl, it still remains to be a significant threat to not only our state and Texas, but the country as well, as we lose, thousands of Americans every single year. Now, I would say one of the most shocking things that I've experienced, and I think I can speak on, for our agency and as well as our troopers, was anytime there's children involved, especially when you're having to recover children that have drowned from the river because they're trying to come across the river with adults or by themselves. I think that's really probably the most shocking thing that we have witnessed, and our troopers have to witness when they're having to perform some of these rescues on these children that are being left abandoned. The fact is, that we have recovered over 900 children from human smuggling events. That in itself as well is very shocking, because when you really stop and think about it, when you recover these children that are being smuggled in the back of cars or in trucks or from a stash house, and you really step back and think about the situation that child's in, and obviously their journey from their home country to when they made it to Mexico, what happened to them while they were there in Mexico with these cartels, and what would have happened to these children if our troopers had not stopped those vehicles and rescued those children? Where would they end up? We hear these tragic stories of sex trafficking, labor trafficking. That is a reality of the situation on the border when you have unaccompanied children that are coming across. And the fact that the federal government fails to address that issue and protect these children who are most vulnerable really shows that their interest right now is not really the care and the safety of these migrants. They really don't care. And the fact that we're having to step in as an agency really shows the work that we're doing and trying to rescue some of these children and prevent them from actually being, placed in the wrong hands or being exploited sexually or through labor trafficking.
As I look at this issue, I know every day you probably sit there and look at those stats and think, if the Biden administration would just do this, or this, it would help us out. What are the top couple of things that you would say to him if you would just do this policy, or rescind one of the 94 executive orders you've done that has opened up the border or weakened immigration? What would you tell them?
It's very simple. Enforce the laws that are on the books already. We know that prior to 2021, you're well aware of this, we had the most secure border that we have ever, that I can tell you that, at least in my experience in law enforcement, that we have ever had. Immigration was down, interior enforcement was up. We were actually apprehending criminals that were in the country and deporting them back. And the fact that now 2021 and on, all those policies remain in Mexico, the safe third country agreements, the border wall, all that was completely rescinded. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in right now. And we're having to spend billions of dollars, Texas taxpayer money, to fund our operations so we can take on this responsibility. So I would say that the federal government, they have the authority right now to secure the border. They know what to do. If they have the authority to rescind all those policies that were working, that were effective, they can simply go back and put those policies back in place, and we can take control of the situation. But in the meantime, we're going to keep doing what we're doing as far as trying to, hold the line in a sense, and take control and protect our state as well as the country. So we'll continue moving forward with those operations.
Well, we are grateful to you all for your good work. If our audience would like to follow Texas DPS, where can they find you all on social media or on the web?
So they can find us on, as far as DPS, we're on numerous platforms, X, Facebook, YouTube. Just go to Texas Department of Public Safety. For X, it's at TXDPS, as well as mine. You can follow me as well on X at LT Chris Olivarez. So again, I try to provide as much information as possible, showing videos, what's really happening on the border, because of course most people they only get a certain sense of what's happening by some media outlets and of course what they see on social media. So we try to provide the facts and the truth of what's really happening on the border by showing the great work from our troopers. So follow us on any one of those social media platforms and you'll get to see some of the work that we've been doing in the course of the last 3 years and of course moving forward.
Well, we are grateful for that. And as I say many times, God bless Texas for stepping up and doing what the federal government would not do. I want to thank our audience for joining us today. And as always, you'll find me on social media at Marsha Blackburn. Thanks so much for joining Unmuted.